Everybody, David Lowry here with Club Fantasci. We are at the Southern Hobby Retail Expo in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm here with Dan Marshall of Asmodee North America, and we're going to take a look at Arkham Horror, the card game. Dan, what can you tell us about this?
All right, so Arkham Horror, the card game, this is very much based on our Arkham Horror series. However, it has a lot of inspiration from our Lord of the Rings cooperative LCG. So it is an LCG, it's a living card game where you are buying a set of cards, but unlike our competitive LCGs, a cooperative LCG lets you play through a scenario together as a team.
Right.
So, in this scenario, we are our investigators, and I have here Roland Banks. He is a federal agent, and you are Wendy Adams.
Yes.
Yeah, she is a street urchin who
you
grew
for
up
that.
as an orphan. Yeah, no problem. She's actually got some good tricks up her sleeve, though, so don't have to worry too much. So how the game progresses is we're going to be able to play cards from our deck in our hand.
Right.
So very much like a typical card game, we're going to have a hand of cards. We're going to be able to build our decks before we even start the game, and each investigator is going to have their own tools, their own resources, assets, allies, and other tricks that they can dig through to help give them the upper hand in this investigation.
Okay.
So, first off, we're going to start the game off with 5 cards in our hand.
All right.
You can see we have all sorts of things. You can see the resource cost is in that upper left-hand corner.
Right.
And you'll also see that they have a keyword, whether that be an event, an asset, or a skill. So, an asset card like my flashlight here, if on my turn I wanted to play it, I would have to pay the 2 resource costs. That's listed in the top left corner.
Okay.
And I'd be able to play it onto my play area here. And now this is in play and I can use its abilities.
Now, some of these come in where they have a limited amount of uses. Is that correct?
That is correct. So for instance, when I install my flashlight, I will actually take 3 supplies from the pool here and just put it on the card, indicating that this kind of has 3 charges or 3 uses. You could think of it as the battery life for the flashlight.
Okay.
And so how you use these items is you can see that there's a little arrow there in the corner on the card, and that indicates that it costs an action to use it.
Okay.
So the basis of your turn is that we are each going to get 3 actions. We can choose who wants to go first. But with our 3 actions, I could draw a card, I could gain a resource from the pool and add it to my cache, I could move from location to location. As you see here, we're just starting the scenario off in the study, which is the first room here.
Right.
You can fight an enemy that you might be engaged with, or investigate for clues. Investigating for clues is pretty important because that's how you're actually going to progress through the story.
Right.
So you see here we have, on the right, we have the Act deck, and then on the left we have the Agenda deck. The Act deck is what we want to progress through. So for instance, we start the game in our study, and we would reveal the rooms, because some rooms can have nasty traps when you enter them.
Okay.
But this one, just because it's an introductory room, it just says that the door to our study has vanished. So we are sitting here in our study and all of a sudden we're trapped. But we now reveal that there are 2 clues per investigator on this location. And the shroud of this room, which is its difficulty, is 2.
Right.
So how we progress through this game is we're going to want to investigate to discover these clues, and then we can move them onto this card. You'll see that the act, this first one in particular, will take 4 clues to get through, as in 2 per investigator.
Right. Awesome.
So how my flashlight that I was able to install will help with that is this helps me lower the shroud of the room that I'm in. So for instance, it has as an action, I can spend 1 supply on my flashlight.
Right.
And it lets me do the investigate action. And my location gets -2 shroud for this action. So I would look at my investigate skill on Roland's character card.
Which is the little book symbol.
Yep, it's the little book symbol up top there, and mine is 3. That means that right now I would be at 3 versus the room's 2 difficulty. However, my flashlight lowers that 2 to a 0. So right now I'm at +3, which seems like I'm winning.
Right.
However, each test that I do, whether it be combat or investigation, is going to require me to draw a token from the chaos bag. So very similar to other Arkham Files games, there is a bag full of tokens and you don't know quite what you're going to pull out. So for each test you resolve, you pull out just one token, and these have varying modifiers from a -1 to a +1 to a -4 to an automatic fail,
right,
or anything in between. Some special symbols that could come up that relate to our current story we're going through. So I'm going to be investigating, and I drew the cultist symbol. Okay. And you'll actually see here that on the gathering, which is the story we're going through,
right,
it just says -1. If I fail, I take 1 horror. So a -1 where my investigation was at 3 versus 0, and it's now at 2 versus 0 with the -1. I'm still winning, so that's no problem at all. I put it back in the bag.
And you get 1 clue for your effort.
And I get 1 clue. So that clue would go to Roland, and I can immediately move that to the card if I want, and I might as well.
Right. Now, you also have a lead investigator in the game, do you not?
You do. You're correct. So when we would start each round, we get to choose who the lead investigator is going to be. So now, for instance, let's say that I use my other 2 actions, since that was just 1 action. I'll draw a card here, and I'll maybe take a resource for later.
Okay.
I would then flip my card over to its black and white side, indicating that my turn is done, and then it would move to your turn.
Okay.
And then in future rounds, we can decide before each round begins if we want to change up who becomes the lead investigator.
So this really does take a little bit from the, definitely the Lord of the Rings LCG, but also from the, what was the other, not Arkham Horror, but I'm just totally spaced out the other game. The other Arkham Horror game that you put out 2 years ago.
Eldritch Horror.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. So there's a definite correlation between the two. So it's already familiar to people who are familiar with these core games.
Exactly.
So it's not a hard learning curve.
Right. It draws a lot from what our designers learned from doing the Lord of the Rings cooperative LCG, but they also wanted to give it much more of an RPG feel. So They wanted you to be able to role play your character and actually go through a set campaign. So you can play the scenarios individually as one-offs if you want. However, they are really structured to go through a campaign, which will involve things like gaining experience at the end of those campaigns based on what decisions you make, how you do, any victory cards that maybe give you more points at the end of the round.
So how many campaigns are within one box?
So the core set comes with 1 campaign, and that campaign contains 3 scenarios.
Okay.
Each scenario can be played on easy or standard, or a much more difficult hard or expert mode. So as you can see, each scenario comes with one of these cards that will indicate its difficulty, and the difficulty will change what these special tokens do.
So it's very scalable depending on who's playing the game.
It's very scalable. You can also scale it by adding more difficult tokens into the bag. So for instance, here you can see that we have such things as like the automatic fail, 0, -2, +1, +1, -1. Overall, these are very, very friendly. However, the tokens can be quite a detriment, and if you want to increase the difficulty, the game suggests that you add in more of the negative tokens and take out a lot of the positive tokens.
So I don't know anything about what you guys are planning, but is there a program installed for the retailers who are interested in purchasing this game?
So the game is actually shipping out right now.
Right.
The release date for this game is November 10th.
Okay.
So anyone that's interested can surely contact Southern Hobby and see what they're able to ship out to them. Otherwise, we're looking forward to having it, do very well, and I think right now the reception has been very positive. So
well, I know everybody's talking about it, and on social media, everybody's super excited about it. I love the game. I mean, I got to play it the other night for the first time, and I had a blast with the game, and it did feel very familiar. It was easy to learn. Who's this going to target? Who's the retailer going to target with this game?
So this is very much a game that could be targeted at your core hobby gamers. So someone who is familiar with LCGs, someone maybe who is even not familiar with card games necessarily, but understands and enjoys role-playing games.
Right.
So it's kind of a mix between those two, and that's really what our designers wanted to focus on, is blending those 2 elements and giving a campaign structure and the ability to have that influence your deck building, being able to level up your cards and use experience to interchange newer, more powerful cards, get a more powerful version of the flashlight that has maybe more battery life or an extra little ability, or even costs less. So there's that feeling of progression that you get from a role-playing game, but has the deck building and gameplay that players have come to love from a living card game.
What is the playing time for this game?
So the playing time for, let's say, this first scenario is about 45 minutes. The play time depends on which scenario you do, and of course the difficulty that you select. Usually we'll find that the harder the difficulty, the shorter the amount of time it takes, since it doesn't take long for the monsters to start swarming you.
So to me it seems like this would be a perfect addition to somebody's collection that they love Arkham Horror but they can't get it to the table because of the length of time.
Exactly.
You hand them this, problem solved. Because you really do get that feel. I mean, the theme really comes through on this game, so it was very well done. I want to thank you for your time and showing us the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really great being here, and thank you for having us on.
My pleasure. Everybody, this is Dan Marshall with Asmodee North America. We are talking about Arkham Horror, the card game, which you can find out more, obviously, at southernhobby.com or asmodeena.com. Stay tuned. We'll have more for you in just a few minutes from the Southern Hobby Supply Retail Expo.